Kick off summer with Memorial Day savings at Lowe's. Right now, get 5 Scott's Naturescapes 1.5 cubic foot mulch bags for just $10. Plus, get up to 40% off select major appliances and save an extra $50 on every $500 you spend on select major appliances $396 or more. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 5/28. Mulch offer excludes Alaska and Hawaii. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. See Lowe's.com for more details.
Blog Talk Radio.
All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico, and we've got a great show for you tonight. April 13th, another Thursday, I think the second Thursday of the year, or of the month, rather. Week following, of course, the Masters. We're going to talk a little bit about that tonight on Coach's Corner. But a great show tonight. I got 3 guys, 2 of them on board already, just waiting for the third one to join me here on the Coach's Corner panel. John Hughes, Peter Egazarian, and Paul Kaster. Going to be on the panel tonight. And then a little bit later on, I'm going to be joined by my good friend and fellow golf professional, of course, Byron Casper, son of the legendary Billy Casper. He's going to be joining me in the second half of the show, and we're going to have a nice little chat and talk about some things. Of course, he's got an upcoming tournament here in about a month's time. That is Dad Head, of course, Billy's tournament out in, I think, in the San Diego, California area, which helps support Billy's Kids, which was his a charitable foundation that he started many, many years ago and has been doing some great things for a lot of the young kids all across the United States. So Byron will be joining me in the second half. But I'm glad you were able to join me tonight here on Golf Talk Live. As always, we're live from 6 to 8 p.m. Central here on blogtalkradio.com network. And quickest way to find us, go to blogtalkradio.com and up in the search key, type Golf Talk Live or just / Golf Talk Live after the initial blogtalkradio.com URL, and that will take you there as well. And for some reason, if you can't join us during the live broadcast, not to worry. You can just scroll down on that link, and you'll see the on-demand section. And, of course, all of the shows, even though they are live on Thursday evenings, they are auto-recorded during the broadcast, and you can listen to them when it's convenient for you, whatever time that may be. So just go to the blogtalkradio.com / Golf Talk Live, and you can listen to the recorded version, as I said, when it's convenient for you. Also, you can also go to iTunes. If you're somebody that frequents iTunes, go to itunes.com and just type in Golf Talk Live in the podcast section. It's available there as a podcast. You can listen to that as well anytime after the show. And also on Stitcher.com. You can also go to Stitcher.com and, again, type in Golf Talk Live, and that will take you to the page, and you can listen to all of the previously aired shows. Love to hear from you anytime during the broadcast. You can call in by phoning area code 646-716-4667. Again, that's 646-716-4667. Or you can reach out to me personally at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. And for those of you in the golf profession, whether you're a coach, teacher professional, or maybe somebody that deals with the mental side or the physical fitness side of golf, or maybe you've written a great book that you'd like to share with my audience. Would love to have you. You can reach me there as well at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com, and I'll see about getting you into the schedule. We're getting pretty filled up for the year, so now's the time to reach out. Always update on social media. Go to facebook.com, and you can go to the Golf Talk Live blog page there and see all of the updates as far as who's going to be coming on the show, including the panels here on Coach's Corner, and my special guest of the evening is always there, and also on my personal page as well, Ted Odorico. You can also follow me on Twitter, and thank you for all of the recent followers here on Twitter. My Twitter handle is Ted and Buck CEO, CEO, of course, in capitals. As I mentioned, I've got a great panel here tonight. Two of the guys are here right now. We're just waiting for the third one, but I'll bring them on board here in just a second. But let me do the introductions. Peter Egazarian, of course, he's a Class A PGA member and teacher professional out at the Taconic Golf Club in Williamstown. And, of course, Paul Kaster is also here with me tonight, and he's a golf coach and the Director of Instruction at the Forsgate Country Club. And hopefully John Hughes, PGA Master Professional, Vice President of the North Florida PGA Section, and the recipient of the 2013 PGA of America Horton Smith Award, will be joining us as well here in a little bit. So in the meantime, Peter and Paul, welcome to Coach's Corner.
Thanks so much, Ted. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah,
not a
great
problem.
to be here, Ted. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys. As always, I appreciate you giving of your time, and I know it's not always easy sometimes trying to get home quick from the golf course and other other things going on. So I appreciate you guys giving of your time. It's a lot to ask, and you guys have done it so well over the last few years. So I appreciate it again very much, guys. Just a couple things I want to touch on tonight. First off, let's talk about, as I mentioned in the opening. This last weekend, of course, was Masters weekend. Very exciting tournament. I want to get just a little bit of feedback, if I can, from both of you on what you thought of the event this year, and obviously about young Sergio coming away with his first, not only his first major, but his first green jacket. Your thoughts, Paul? I'm going to go with you first.
I just thought it was so much fun to watch. I actually got to watch a fair amount of it, especially on Sunday this year. Watched a lot of the replays earlier in the week, and I was just really happy to see Sergio win. I think he's, it's been a long time coming for him. I think all of us probably anticipated him winning a few more majors maybe by this point in his career. But to see him kind of maintain his composure in a way that he hadn't really done in the past, in the clutch, coming down the stretch in a major, and to, I think, the fact that he won the Masters, which he said himself was a tournament that he really loved and he wanted to win more than any other major, and to see him win it on Seve's birthday, his 60th, what would have been his 60th birthday, was, pretty hard to write a script a whole lot better than that, I think, for him. So it was a great week to watch golf.
Yeah, I agree. And Peter, what was equally interesting, and Paul just pointed this out. Of course, it was it would have been Seve's 60th birthday, and obviously Sergio being the third Spaniard to win at Augusta now. Of course, Seve being one, and Jose Maria Olazabal being the other. So this is the third Spaniard, which is huge for them. But also, he's one of the second players that had a mentor who had passed. The other one being Ben Crenshaw, of course, his mentor Harvey Pennock, who had passed away, and of course he went on to win the Masters that particular year as well. In fact, he flew back and forth from the funeral, as I recall, Harvey Pennock's funeral. So very emotional, I'm sure, for Sergio. Share your thoughts. What did you think about the tournament itself, and about Sergio coming through in the end?
Yeah, it's a very well done event from the very beginning, just kicking off the week with drive, chip, and putt, all the way through Sunday, finishing the event with a green jacket presentation. To say that the members in the tournament committee at Augusta National gets it would be an understatement. Just the entire thing is obviously first class, and I'm a very huge fan, as I'm sure Paul is, of the drive, chip, and putt. I think it's just a huge thing for junior golfers, or one of the things junior golfers can aspire to, and set as a goal. But Sergio winning, I think, is just fantastic. I agree with what you were saying with Seve being present. He had a lot of support from Jose Maria leading up to it, but it was hard, as not only a golf professional but a longtime fan of golf, knowing what's is Seve's birthday and the past history, to really feel emotional for everybody involved in the entire situation while he's coming up 18 and after he makes the putt. It was just a great scene and just a great ending to an event. Very happy for him.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I'll tell you what really surprised me, and there are a couple other things I want to talk about the Masters, and then we're going to get into our discussion tonight, which will really actually kind of play in a little bit to what we're talking about. But I was really surprised, of course, when he was in the in Butler Cabin, when he was getting ready to receive his green jacket, which is of course part of the ceremony. I was impressed at how well composed he was. I would have thought that the emotions would have gotten better. I mean, this is something that, as you both mentioned, and Sergio has waited a long time, to put that green jacket on and really to win any major, but particularly the Masters being so important to him. I was really surprised and impressed at how well he kept it together. I thought for sure, and I'm sure it did it, a little bit later on, but I thought for sure the emotions would have come sort of gushing out. But I guess, when you're, in that circumstance, you're able to sort of hold it back. But I was very equally impressed. I want to get your thoughts too, guys, on something else here. Dustin Johnson, regrettably had to literally, on the morning of the first round, had to withdraw due to a personal injury that he incurred the night before. How tough, and Peter, I'm going to let you go first this time, and then Paul, how tough do you think was that for him to have to withdraw from a tournament that he himself has won, coming in here as the basically defending champion, and to have something as simple as slipping down, a step or two, and incurring an injury, that had to be tough on him emotionally and mentally, as well as the physical, issues. But how hard as a player do you think was that for him to have to be able to withdraw?
I mean, you could tell how difficult it was even leading up to him being on the first tee. He was really wanting to stick it out, seemingly, by, warming up, finding out what he can do on a physio end during the round, and then getting to the first tee and just, I think, making a really difficult but good decision to, risk any further injury, A, or B, putting any kind of the integrity of the round or the tournament in jeopardy by slowing down play. So I think he made a difficult but responsible decision that, is really unfortunate that he had to make. I mean, we talked to other, some players of mine or other golfers around here or golf professionals. Everybody at some points been wearing socks or going down some hardwood stairs, hardwood floor stairs and slipped and fell on their butt, and I think he's really fortunate that a tweaked back was the only thing that happened, because he's a big man, and I think he's a little lucky. It's unfortunate when it happened, but I think he got a little lucky with that as well.
Yeah, well said, Peter. And Paul, I agree with exactly what Peter said. He is very lucky. I mean, there could have been, he could have hit his tailbone. He could have broken a leg. A lot of things that could have kept him out potentially for several months, let alone, maybe a week or two. And I don't know whether he's going to be in this week's event or not, or how long. But by the sounds of things, they were icing it down pretty good. It just was not going to be in good enough shape to contend in the Masters. So obviously, it was his interest and best interest to withdraw. But obviously, as Peter said, it could have been a lot worse. Your thoughts on that as well, Paul?
Oh, I just agree with everything Peter said. Peter's a smart guy. I know him a little bit, so it's hard not to agree with a lot of what he says and does. But I think, just as well as Dustin has been playing, for him under those circumstances to have to walk away had to have been tremendously difficult. And to have won the U.S. Open last year, he's really breaking out. I think anyone who's observed him and what's happened with him, all the way you look back at Whistling Straits and tournaments, he's played so well, and he's gotten to the point now where, could easily, he could be a dominant player in a very, very talented PGA Tour, field from week to week. And for him to walk away under those circumstances probably took a lot of self-control. I mean, like Peter said, I mean, to protect the integrity of the field, the round, himself, no good golfer wants to go out and play really badly because they're hurt.
No.
And it's, very hard to be committed to golf shots if you're wondering whether or not, you're going to hurt yourself worse during a swing or, so I think it just had to be really hard for him he came off I think it was a 4th place finish the year before at the Masters. And, he's won I think 2 out of the last 3 events, it's very recently won several events, and to have won the U.S. Open last year. So had to have been very tough for him.
Yeah, I agree. Let me just very quickly interrupt for a second, guys, and I see that John is ready to come on board. Fortunately, he's going to be able to join us tonight. So let me just bring John Hughes in. I've already done his introduction, so we'll bring him in and get him into the conversation as well. Good evening, John, and welcome, my friend.
Good evening, everybody. Apologize to the audience, Pete, Ted, and Paul. Duty calls when the clients need a little extra help. We can't let them bleed before they go home.
No, and I totally understand. Let me just again say that how much I appreciate you guys giving of your time, and obviously I know the lesson tee comes first always. Not to worry, John. We were just sort of killing a few moments before we get into the conversation. Let me just ask you one question. I'm going to give you an opportunity since we were talking about, of course, the Masters, and I'm going to give you just a moment or two to talk about Sergio's win, your thoughts on that. And then the other question I talked about, obviously, or thing I asked was about Dustin Johnson, of course, having to withdraw from the Masters. But I want to do it a little bit differently with you, John. Again, a moment or two about Sergio's win, your thoughts on that. But as far as Dustin Johnson's concerned, obviously it was unfortunate that he had to withdraw from the tournament, but probably smart. If you were his coach and or his caddy, what would you advise him in this scenario? Obviously, you know what happened to him. It was all over the news. But let's say you were concerned that there could be maybe bigger injuries, yet he wanted to play. If you didn't think it was the best thing, would you advise him not to play and withdraw? Or what would you do? What would your take on that? First, talk about Sergio real quick, and then your thoughts on Dustin Johnson.
Well, if you don't mind, I'm going to twist it and do Dustin first because Sergio, as the winner, we owe him his due. Anytime you got an athlete that's injury prone and or prone to, I'm going to call it this, just not paying attention to simple things, which Dustin is known to have been done in the past. I'm not implicating anything that way. Just people are of the nature that they are. Coach, caddy, spouse, agent, whoever it is, you owe it to the person to let them know and to sort of help him stay in line. And I use that very broadly. I don't mean that from a disciplinarian standpoint of view.
Sure.
A lot of these guys just don't understand. They're still fearless. They're still invincible. They're still living as teenagers kind of thing. And what they don't realize sometimes is there's other people that are relying on them beyond just their skill capability. It's their earning potential. So from a very selfish point of view, these people should be telling them. But from a, hey, let's prolong your career. Let's make sure you're doing the right things by yourself and by your body. That is coach, that is caddy, that is agent specifically. From the standpoint of view of if you're not looking out for your client that way, then maybe the client should be looking for someone else to caddy, coach, and manage them is the way I look at it. So, we're pulling out, withdrawing long-term for his career, the absolute right thing to do. By Friday morning, we had totally forgotten about him. So from a short-term standpoint, there was no damage, there was no nick. Hopefully his back recovers. He's able to play the rest of the year. He's absolutely becoming exciting. And one of the things he's bringing to the fore that we haven't seen since Tiger is that little bit of intimidation factor when he's in a tournament These other guys are sort of looking over their shoulder at him. So nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with stirring the pot.
Yeah, well said.
Sergio, just a bright hope of perseverance is the best way to say it. And it should be a lesson to anyone listening, the coaches here on the panel and future panels. It is all about persistency. And if golf has a way of pulling that out of you, life does too. We've spoken about it, Ted, many times before, that golf's a microcosm of life. I think what you saw in Sergio is the persistence. It'll be very entertaining and very interesting to see if he can parlay this and grab some not just some mojo, just some momentum going forward through the latter part of his career, like a Marco Mera did, like several other people winning majors late in their career. Let's see. The jury's out, but I think once he's overcome that hump and take the monkey off his back, I think you'll see a lot more from him.
Yeah, well said. One final thought that I'm going to inject here, and this is just a prediction, if you will. I think you're going to see a very similar, it may not be exact, but very similar scenario to Phil Mickelson, who I know you didn't mention, John, but was probably one of the ones you were thinking of. Phil, same thing, had that monkey on his back for many, many years. A lot of people were questioning this, especially with the ability that Phil has had with the short game particularly. Was very surprised, and when he broke through that first major, of course, being a Masters as well, kind of opened up the floodgates to other major champions, including more Masters and so forth. So I wouldn't be surprised. My prediction is I think you're going to see something very similar now that first one is under his belt by Sergio Garcia, and we'll see what the future holds. But I agree. I think his confidence is really is going to take off now with that. And that brings us really to tonight's discussion, guys. We're going to talk about confidence. Being, again, for some, particularly up in the Northeast, obviously for us that are fortunate down here in Florida and other parts of the Southeast, we get to golf all year round. But some of those that are thawing out, not that it was really that cold this year, but getting their golf clubs dusted off. One of the things, in addition to getting their physical part of their game and their physical fitness and other things in shape, is sort of regaining that confidence. And Paul, I'm going to go to you first, then Peter, and then John. I'm going to let you on this particular question. One of the things that I think sort of makes and breaks people is some of the players out there are very proactive, and some are reactive. And let me just give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Obviously, somebody that's more proactive is going to take sort of their own responsibility for their own confidence, and this is something too that a lot of better players do. Is they look over over their careers and over their journey in the golf course, if you will, and they use a lot of the positive reinforcements that they've gained in their experiences, and tend to be proactive in their attitudes. Other people that are reactive tend to wait until maybe they've hit a bad stretch of holes and sort of react, and they've lost that confidence. So they're more a reactive type personality. So what I want to ask you, Paul, is this: taking those two scenarios, a proactive player and a reactive player, what are you going to do? What steps are you going to take to help build that player? So we're going to talk about maybe a little bit better player, of course, in this particular segment than some of our higher handicappers. So let's take even a collegiate player who's played some rounds of golf and has been a pretty good player and is very proactive. Talk about the proactive side of it and then the reactive side, and then each of you will do the same. Paul?
Yeah, sure. I think for better players, I think we've learned to be selective with our memory, and good players know not to focus on bad shots. And so I think in that sense, that's what you're talking about when we're talking about proactive, people and players. We kind of good golfers understand that the game isn't about consistency necessarily, and that there's a lot of variability, and that you're going to hit some bad shots, and that if you just can't focus on them, and that you have to draw from those strengths that you've, good experiences, good rounds, good shots that you've hit in the past. So, I think trying to emphasize that we're really talking about mental coaching, and incorporating that into teaching, the full swing or coaching on the range is difficult. So you really have to spend time with players out on the golf course, focusing on how to play shots to aggressive shots to conservative targets, talking about making sure that we're not taking unnecessary risks, and that we're focusing on visualization, seeing shots that we've hit in the past, maybe on holes just like it or on the same hole, things like that. It's really tough to do that kind of teaching on the range. So I think in terms of emphasizing proactivity, you're really trying to get the person to stay in the present, visualize, see a good golf shot, and then execute it, and do that preferably, out on the golf course, where things kind of matter a little bit more than the driving range.
Right.
Is that
now? What about that's exactly what I was looking for. What about a reactive player? Now you've got players out there that maybe they've again put together 2 or 3 holes in a tournament, and it's shaken their confidence a little bit. So they've kind of been reactive. In a scenario like that, what do you do specifically? Obviously you want them to draw on positive experiences, but even the best athletes, sometimes if they've had a string of bad holes or even a few bad rounds, let those negative thoughts creep in. So what about a reactive player? How do we help them sort of regain some of that confidence? What can we do?
Well, I actually use something called Focus Band that's been around now for a couple of years, to help players create really good pre-shot routines and routines that help them kind of push out automatic negative thinking. We all have that, so to some degree, I think a more confident player with a longer history of playing well will have less of that. A newer player who may not be as experienced in tournaments, younger player sometimes, will tend to kind of have a little bit more doubt. And breathing is such a key component to feeling calm and having a quiet mind standing over a golf ball. So, working with breathing, incorporating deep breathing into a pre-shot routine, pushing out any automatic negative thoughts that happen to pop into your head. The Focus Band's great because it gives you audio feedback of kind of where you are in the spectrum of kind of negative thinking and left brain thinking versus right brain thinking. So that it can be very helpful that way. But I think breathing, honestly, is very much overlooked. Most people tend to stop breathing as soon as they get nervous or anxious or upset.
Right.
And it just, creates a cascading effect.
Yeah, well said. Peter, about you, let's use Sergio obviously as an example of a proactive player. Obviously he came into this tournament with a lot of confidence. He's been playing well. He's been striking the ball well. Let's use him maybe as an example of a proactive player, and then maybe you've got an example that you could give and maybe share some additional comments to what Paul just said with a reactive player. Let's talk a little bit about that, and then I'll move on to John.
Well, Ted, I think you can actually classify Sergio as a little bit of a reactive player because of the amount of emotion he's been playing with in the past. Any kind of player that you're going to have that's either confident or reactive, you're going to look at their mindset first, just in a very large sense. And a lot of times their past experiences or their personality shape their mindset very greatly. But, you're a proactive player like any professional or usually your high-ranking amateur players that are going to play really well are very proactive and answer all of this anxiety of performance and expectations of results with process. They really have determined with their coaches, and I spend a lot of my time with my competitive players of determining what their A, B, and C of their golf game is so that they can focus on just hitting those 3 factors each time and then regulating as necessary. I love the fact that we're talking about confidence today. It's really one of my key factors that I coach towards. It's, for me, all it is context and confidence. And I feel as though if a player, either proactive or reactive, have those 2 things present, while we're working, they're going to be going in a very good direction no matter what their playing level is. So for the proactive player, you definitely look at, understanding their mindset, helping them discover their version of process so that they could stay in that and have an answer for how they're going to perform. The reactive player is definitely something that, again, you need to go to their personality, their expectations, and then provide them and discuss, talk through the point of self-awareness. Helping a reactive player be self-aware of how they react to certain situations is very, very crucial in helping them make that reaction constructive. This is where Lynn and Pia from Vision 54 have, been instrumental in helping so many reactive players have that self-awareness and know how they're going to react when a certain emotion and certain kind of stimulus hits them, and how they're going to counteract that and bring themselves back to a positive place is a huge thing for a reactive player. And with you're referencing Sergio, you could say that the reason why he's playing so well recently is that he's become self-aware enough where he knows he can be a proactive player instead of being emotionally reactive. It really, again, like I said in the beginning, goes back to their mindset and their personality. And I know as a coach, you get to know your player. I know Paul does a lot of work indoors, and so do I in the winter. And a lot of times we spend plenty of time with our players and get to know them and really get to know, them personally and also about their golf game. And we get a good sense of how we can help them go into this season and beyond with just more confidence in general about going on the golf course or performing to their own expectations.
Yeah, well said. And you're right. When you think about it in a little bit more detail, you're right about Sergio. I mean, he could really go either way because obviously, coming into this tournament, I'm sure he had a lot of confidence, but I'm sure there were a few demons in the back of his mind that were saying, Sergio, you've been here before, many times, and I'm sure that there was some challenges there. And obviously, again, that experience that he's gained over the years of knowing how to handle certain pressure situations has helped him to be more proactive in certain areas. John, I want to get you into this as well, but I want to do this a little bit differently with you, of course, just to keep things a bit fresh. Obviously, I try not to get too repetitive with everybody, so I want to put a little bit of a twist to it. But Peter sort of alluded to about the coaching aspect of things. Talk a little bit about, for both, but for your players particularly, how important it is to be matched up with good coaching. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the coach has good technique or things like that. There's other values and other factors that need to be considered. For instance, the coach has to believe in that particular player. It's one thing to come out and teach them about the swing and teach them about certain aspects out in the golf course, but there has to be an honest belief in that player. So talk a little bit about how important that connection between coach and player is, and then also helping players to understand their strengths and limitations. Go.
I'm on the clock. The thing that everybody's got to realize in this entire conversation is that from the moment we as humanoids stood on 2 legs, we became reactionary. When we're cold, we seek warmth. When we're warm, we seek cool. When we're hungry, we seek food. When we're in fear, we seek shelter. These are all reactions, and they're hardwired in us from the moment we're birth until the moment we pass. So to have a golfer try to be non-reactive is just sort of out of the question. What Paul and Peter basically alluded to with Sergio was, you know what, here's a maturation process of a young man that at 17, 18, 19 years old had the world thrust upon him. And yes, very emotional and therefore reactive. You now see him 18, 19 years later, and he's come full circle. He's actually gone from reactive to proactive, and proactive is not him. So when you look at him now, and he basically said it in his Butler Cabin interview, I'm just so aware of myself, I'm so at peace with myself and who I am and what I'm about. He's gone from one extreme to the other. And when seeking a coach or the best coaching player relationships I've ever been around, a good one that's apropos for today is Bud Cauley and Craig Shanklin. Craig's been teaching Bud since he was 7, 8 years old. They all tend to balance each other out. That coach, that player relationship, you've got to go through that maturation process of being reactive and understanding, as Paul had said, what's important to this person. You find that out when you spend a lot of time with them. You find out what buttons you can and can't press. But by the same token, the player realizes, hey, this coach is really behind me, really understands me, wants the best for me. What am I doing to support that habit of myself? At some point, you reach that process with your student. And it takes a little while. Some people it takes not so long, and others it takes their entire career. But the objective is to seek the balance. You certainly don't want a robot out there who doesn't have a feeling about what they're doing. You've got to be passionate about what you're doing. You've got to care about what you're doing, and that's what you see in a Sergio or a Phil or any of these people that wear their emotions on their shoulders at times. But then again, the ones that are overreactive, those are the ones that haven't found that neutral balance that a good coach or a good sports psych would help facilitate. Confidence is all relative to that balance, and at some point, confidence has got to allow trust to happen. I was with a student earlier this week, and we talked about the difference between confidence and trust. And confidence, a mindset. Trust is more of a self-emotion, a self-feeling that no matter how confident you are, you're not going to get too cocky, too overwhelmed, but you can trust yourself that this is going to happen. You've put in the time. You've put in the balancing act, well, whether it's mechanical, whether it's trusting on the golf course, playing on the golf course, and really getting to know yourself. At some point, most golfers cross that bridge from confidence to trust, and that's when things start sparking. That's when things really start igniting, and you see a player go on a roll, not just for a tournament or two, but for an entire career.
Right. Well said. Great answers, guys, and you know, little similarities, but some differences as well. I like that. You know, I think that I think that the individual players, there's a lot of factors involved, and I think one thing. And Peter, I'm going to go to you, and then John, and then Paul. But I'm going to ask each of you a different question here. Peter, having a clear and defined goal plan, I think is equally important. What do you do, and how do you help your players that you work with or students that you work with help them sort of, obviously you want them to ascertain first off and foremost what their goals and ideas are, but how do you put together a plan for them to follow, to give them a sense of security, which ultimately will help in their confidence as well? Is there anything that you do specifically to help some of your students accomplish that?
Mm-hmm. You know, like you said, any of my coaching players, it starts with, a goal-setting worksheet that they fill out first and foremost, and it's very revealing as to, a little bit of where their mindset is, and then we go on the golf course next. We spend, either 9 or 18 holes, where their schedule has time for, I'm taking a look at their game, talking to them, getting to know them better, and then after that we're making a fairly detailed plan as to, how often we're going to get together, what's going to be the details of our engagement. And then, I'm I'm there writing a plan for them that's a little more behind the scenes, but at the same time I'm pretty transparent about what we're going to be talking about and where I see, areas of concern in their game. And, when we're working either on the golf course or on the range, we're going to talk actively in a two-way interaction. It's always, for me, there's times that they're going to need a little bit of direction and for me to give some input, but it's always a two-way conversation between my players and I. And then it's very much all directing them towards, letting them know that they're definitely on the right track in some areas, and where we're going to really focus their practice. Again, I'm pretty hands-on with the practice. On every Saturday and Sunday, our supervised practice program. Saturday is somewhere on a practice facility for 2 hours. They're always welcome to come with that or to that, and our Sunday evening on-course training. So I'm pretty hands-on with it. I have a detailed schedule of everything pertaining to our practice and training programs, so they know what to expect. And sometimes I should say a lot of times it gets modified, and because it's definitely an evolution going towards that area of context and ultimately their confidence that they can derive of knowing why things happen and when things are constructively can happen. And it's fun to see, and it's a lot of fun for me to get to know my players.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that's a great way to approach it. I think that you have to have, I think all players have to have, a goal in mind of what they want to achieve, and obviously some long-term goals and some short-term goals, and having a definitive plan and helping them put that together, and doing it in a program such as that is, as opposed to just doing sort of your traditional golf lessons that they might have done 20 years ago. I think this is where the coaching comes into more. It's an evolution, as you said, Peter. John, I want to talk about emotions a little bit, but I also want to have you maybe just expand a little bit about creating a positive and supportive internal dialogue or internal voice. Why is that important for a player, and not having that, how can it be detrimental to a player improving or handling themselves out in the golf course?
Well, to sort of segue off of what was previously said, when setting up a long-term coaching program with a good player, I too will have the player fill, I call it a goal pyramid, and I want to see what their goals are and how motivated they are to reach those goals on their own. One thing good players should recognize is coaches are willing to help you create that internal dialogue, but it's got to come from within. We can't motivate. Motivation comes from within. We can inspire. We can coach. We can provide guidance. We can, I like to use the term, I'd love to have a horse that runs and all I've got to do is bridle him and show him where to go. And that's ultimately what we're all looking for as coaches. So from the internal talk, from the emotional standpoint of view of being able to be your own best fan is what I call it. At some point throughout a career, whether it's on a practice range, during a tournament, during an adverse situation that's off the golf course, you got to recognize that emotions are there. I was always told as a youngster by my dad, try to keep your emotions in check so they're not too high and not too low, that you run a pretty even keel, recognizing that there's going to be times where you're going to have to go really high. You get married, you have a child, or the times when it's going to go very low, you lose a parent, you lose a loved one type of thing, and everything else is relative to that. A lot of players so overvalue, and I use that term very specifically, every shot or every tournament as if it's life or death. That type of emotion can really eat at you. It can gnaw, it can grind, and eventually wear someone out. I think what you see in the PGA Tour players, the good, long-lasting LPGA Tour players, is that they're able to take their emotions and flatten them to a certain degree. Yes, Sergio should celebrate. Yes, whoever has the claret jug should drink out of it. But the ability to come back down and realize, hey, I still have more to do. There's still not necessarily more to accomplish so much as there's still a road ahead of me that maybe I haven't completed. How do I go about doing that? If you ride those emotions, that's different from momentum. Momentum is internal and constantly feeds itself. It's sort of a self-actuating proposition for yourself, where emotions, it's like a fire. It's a candle. And when that candle burns out, how are you going to replace it? Have you put a candle in its place prior? That's hard to do. It's very hard to do because that candle may not smell the same. It may not burn the same wick timing the same. It's very, very difficult. So when it comes to coaching, I take the proactive steps of being the sounding board. I want to hear what they have to say and where they want to go, and I'm constantly asking about their motivation and their energy level, both physical, mental, and emotional, all three, and trying to help them understand the balance to that there's going to be some days that physically you're off, but your emotions and mental condition gets you through the day, that ABC that was mentioned before. But to me, the ABC are those three things because they can intertwine and help each other. The real key to it all, again, I used this term earlier, is balancing it all out. And what a player should be looking for long-term, that when you have that good self-talk inside of yourself that's constantly patting you on the back, that is evaluating you objectively and providing you solutions going forward, that's a good thing. If you're going to beat yourself up, be self-deprecating to the point where it wears you down and wears the people around you down, don't be surprised that as that happens, the people around you leave you. There's a reason for it, and you should be leaving yourself. You should be looking to reinvent yourself from that standpoint.
Yeah, I agree. Well said. Paul, I think one area that a lot of, especially our amateur players and our higher handicap players seem to miss the boat, and to me, this would be a great way if you want to be successful in this upcoming golf season. And of course, I'm referring to particularly a lot of those in the cooler climates that are just sort of getting into their rounds now. But is preparation. We talked about goal setting and having a plan. But even just for a particular round, let's say, you're going out this Saturday or Sunday and you want to play golf, I think a lot of amateurs particularly do not prepare at all or properly for that round. And I think that also adds to lack of confidence as well in a player, or can lead to a lack of confidence. What should a player do in your mind? What do you try to encourage your players to properly prepare for an upcoming round? And it doesn't have to be any specific tournament, just even with their favorite, in their favorite foursome. A lot of players just don't. They show up to the course late, maybe hit a couple of balls in the range. In a perfect world, for those listening to the show tonight, what would you instruct them to do if you want to play your best golf this summer? Here's what you need to do before every round. Go.
Well, I think for kind of recreational golfers, you hit the nail on the head in terms of the average player showing up to the golf course, running a little bit late, running out to the tee, not really stretching, hitting a handful of golf balls on the range, not putting a whole lot, and then going out and trying to play their round. That would kind of be the typical, warm up or pre-round prep for most golfers. And it's just sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, or lack of preparation.
Right, yeah, exactly. To the extent that that's preparation. But yeah, so, the golf swing is a ballistic motion. I'm TPI certified. I know Peter is. I think John maybe. If you don't prepare your body to swing a golf club at least somewhat, it's going to take you, could take you 5-6 holes just to feel kind of loose and like your golf swing has a little bit of freedom in it. So obviously if you really want to play your best, you don't want to stay out too late having too good a time the night before. You want to get some rest. Want to try to avoid conflict with anybody before you leave the house in the morning. Obviously, if you have a tough interaction with anybody really before you get to the golf course, you're going to be in a bad way. So you want to get to the course feeling kind of peaceful. Ben Hogan said that he would deliberately drive, I think it was like 5 or 10 miles an hour under the speed limit on the way to the course. All the way in the right-hand lane, trying to keep just stay nice and steady, nice and even. And then when we get to the course, give yourself enough time to do some form of a warm-up. If you have access to a fitness center at your club, go ride the bike for 20 minutes or 10 minutes. Any amount of time would be better than nothing because it would give your body a chance to warm up. To get loose. You can do a little bit of stretching. There are a few dynamic stretching kind of routines that you could do right on the driving range that would prepare your body to swing and move. And then, you want to kind of evenly distribute your warm-up practice between short game and putting and the driving range. You have to give yourself a chance to feel how fast the greens are, how they're rolling. You want to hit a few short putts just to kind of confirm that I'm going to make a few today. Listen to the ball go in the hole. A favorite pre-round drill that I do is putting to the fringe. Just from, maybe 8 or 10 feet away, just to get a sense of the speed without really focusing on actually making putts. So, we're preparing ourselves to go out and do the things that are really important, which is roll the ball at the right speed, make short putts, because those are going to be the critical things for making a good score. And then, on the driving range, I don't think you really need to spend a lot of time hitting a lot of golf balls. You just want to get a feel for the golf club, for hitting solid shots. I've heard tour players say that they might only hit like 5 or 6 golf balls with each club as they work their way up through their bag. So wedge, 8-iron, 5-iron, 3-wood driver. And I've heard tour players say that they spend, 45 minutes to an hour hitting balls before they go out. So I don't think there's a standard. You have to find where you are in that spectrum. But you want to spend a little bit of time doing everything and then go to the tee feeling like you're going to have a good day and you're going to make some good confident swings.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think each player obviously is each individual is unique, and obviously, as you just pointed out, some players might be able to get away with just hitting a few balls each club on the range, and then there's others that might want to spend more of their time. Again, it depends, but I think you're exactly right. I think there's a lot of factors involved. And I understand, and I think we would all agree with this. We understand that a lot of people have a lot of time restrictions. It's not like it used to be many years ago where, there was a lot more free time. We have a lot of other outside interests that take our time. So golf has become more of a luxury for some people. So it's not always easy to go and spend several days a week, warming up or practicing at the driving range to get ready for a weekend golf outing with your buddies. But there's still an opportunity if you want to play your best golf, I think, is to make good use of what time you do have. And really there's no excuse, because if you think about this, and again, I'm sure you would all agree with this, it doesn't always have to take place at the golf course. There's lots of things that you can do even at home. Inside the house, there's, practice putting indoors. So there's all kinds of different things. You can even go outdoors in the back and maybe with some plastic balls or something, if you've got the room, just work on that sort of rhythm and timing of your golf swing. And again, you don't necessarily have to use every club, but just take a few, maybe an 8-iron or a 9-iron, and just practice that sort of flowing motion with the golf swing, just getting used to that, even for 5 minutes a couple times a week. At least it gets you practicing that movement. Whereas you mentioned earlier, a lot of people just showing up and jumping to the first tee and not really being properly prepared. And I think this is why so many people get frustrated, is because they don't take the time to do any sort of preparation or anything reasonable, and they show up at the golf course and wonder why they can't break 100. So great tips, Paul, and guys, some great answers tonight. Unfortunately, we're out of time. It's a fast hour, but I'm going to give each of you, and Paul, I'm going to start back with you, Peter, and then John. Share with the audience, for those that would like to reach out to you and correspond with you, maybe have you help with them a little bit with their game, or maybe have any questions that they might want to ask you. How can they get a hold of you? Paul?
Again, I'm the Director of Instruction at Forsgate Country Club. My website is paulcastergolf.com, and my email is paulcastergolf@gmail.com. And feel free to get in touch. We're just getting started here in New Jersey with the season, and opening a golf academy this year, and we've got a lot of great programs available. So I look forward to helping anybody who'd like to come down.
Perfect. Peter?
Yes, I'm out of Taconic Golf Club. We're on the campus of Williams College in the Berkshires of Massachusetts, in the very western portion of the state. We're about 3 hours from Boston, 3 hours from New York City. My website is gogolfcoach.com. We have a live chat feature on that website on the bottom left-hand corner, so if you want to reach me, you can reach out there as well. And I'm also very active on social media. My Instagram handle is Daily Golf Coach, and my Twitter handle is Daily Golf Pro. If you'd like to reach out on any of those, that's great. I'm always on there and very active, really on 2-3 times a day. So,
perfect. And last but certainly not least, Mr. John Hughes. How can the folks reach out?
Thanks, Ted. Thanks, Pete and Paul. And again, apologize to the audience. I do really love my clients, and we just got a little out of hand tonight, and I apologize. But you can reach me at johnhughesgolf.com. That's pretty much my website. Social media outlets, which are multiple. Email, just put john@johnhughesgolf.com. Want to say a really quick thank you shout out to the members of Gaston Country Club in Gastonia, North Carolina. I'm a great buddy there, Thomas Troncoso, had me up as a guest instructor for a weekend not too long ago. We had a great time up there. I am available here in Orlando at Falcons Fire Golf Club in the Kissimmee area year-round, but I do some traveling here and there and would love to help anybody out who needs it. Just reach out. I will promise you, if you get a hold of me by 5 in the Eastern time, you'll get a response that day. And once again, Ted, thanks a lot for the honor and privilege to be part of a great Coach's Corner this evening.
Perfect. Well, guys, thank you as always. And as I said in the beginning and have said many times, I appreciate you guys giving of your time. I know it's not always easy, and no worries, John. I'm glad that you were helping some students, and I think it's an honor and privilege to have you guys joining me here on Thursday nights on the Coach's Corner panel. You guys have some great insight to the game, and I appreciate you guys sharing it with my audience. So until the next time, gentlemen, have a great weekend. Happy Easter to all of you and your respective families, and spend a little time with the family this weekend. It's a special weekend, and I look forward to having you guys joining me here again on Golf Talk Live's Coach's Corner. Thanks, and have a great one.
Thanks so much, Ted. Happy
Easter. Ted, you as well.
All right, thank you. All right, that was my very special guest on the Coach's Corner panel, John Hughes, PGA Master Professional and Vice President of the North Florida PGA Section, and also a top 30 instructor from Golf Tips magazine. Peter Egazarian, the PGA member and teacher professional at the Taconic Golf Club in Williamstown, Massachusetts, and of course Paul Kaster, great golf coach and director of instruction at the Forsgate Country Club up in New Jersey. So 3 great guys on the panel discussion tonight. And I'm just waiting for my good friend, Mr. Byron Casper, to join me here for a great conversation this evening. And got lots of things to talk about. But let me just remind everybody while I'm waiting for Byron to join in. If you're looking for a great program to listen to, this is the stop to come to. Go to blogtalkradio.com, type in Golf Talk Live up in the search key, and that will take you to the broadcast page. And every Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. Central, we are live here on the blogtalkradio.com network. And I look forward to you joining us each and every Thursday. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the program, for those of you who aren't able to join live, if you go to that page blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live, and scroll down to where it says On Demand, in that section there is all of the previously aired, including tonight's broadcast, as they are all auto-recorded. You can scroll down to the On Demand section and listen to them when it's convenient for you. So 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you can get us here, Golf Talk Live, so no excuses. And share that link with the folks. Again, one more time, it's blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live. Share that with your friends, your golfing buddies. Always some great tips. Thursday nights, we started off, of course, every week, unless otherwise mentioned, with a great Coach's Corner panel discussion, and then an insightful interview with great guys like my guest tonight, Byron Casper, a very good friend of mine. And let me just tell you a little bit about Byron. He, of course, is, if you haven't figured it out by now, or if you haven't tuned in before, he is the son of legendary golfer Billy Casper, who unfortunately is no longer with us any longer, but shared some great memories over the years. And I had the fortunate honor of interviewing him back in late 2013 when one of the first years I started the program here. Billy gave, as he does with so many people out there, was very giving of his time and came on the show. So actually, if you scroll down, I believe it was in early November. I think it was November 7th. Don't quote me on that. But if you go in the on-demand section at blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live and scroll down to one of the earlier broadcasts, I believe November of 2013, you can listen to Mr. Billy Casper in his interview with me. But here's my buddy Byron Casper, his son. And let me just tell you a little bit about his background. A great golf professional, been in the industry for many, many years, and he really attributes a couple of things. Not only has he a great networker, but has an international career, and I'll tell you about that in a second. But he also attributes the fact that, of course, his father, Billy, playing at such a high level and involvement in the golfing world, really has been a huge factor in him being able to offer his experience now as a golf professional as well. So lots of great things, and he had a great track record of being a very effective team manager and corporate director over the years. And in 2008, of course, he was living over in Europe for a number of years, but in 2008 he moved back to the United States after 14 years of living in Europe, where he was based in St. Andrews, Scotland, and worked also in Oslo, Norway, and in Munich, Germany as well, and traveled throughout extensively in the EU. And just a great guy. And we're going to talk a little bit of golf. We're going to talk a little bit about Billy and also about the upcoming tournament, which helps supports Billy's kids, which was Billy's near and dear foundation. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But first, let me welcome my very special guest, Mr. Byron Casper. Good evening, Byron. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just perfect.
All right. Wonderful. Wonderful. I just wanted to make sure that my connection was good, or else I was going to hook into Wi-Fi. Even us old guys know technology a little bit, right?
Right. No, we're good. Byron, I wanted to, first and foremost, I want to say thank you as always. Byron and I, what's been kind of interesting, and we talked a little bit, we were on the phone for probably almost 2 hours last night. Unfortunately, we don't have that long tonight, but we have some interesting conversations, and they're never short. But one of the things that I've enjoyed, and I consider an honor to call you my friend now. But back a few years ago, as I mentioned to the folks here, I had the honor and privilege of interviewing your father, Billy, and just what an incredibly humble. I mean, ranked number 7 of all-time golfers in the world. Played with the best of the best, and was one himself. Won multiple majors, 51 tournaments, I think, altogether, and played against other great golfers: Nicholas Palmer, Trevino, Player, and just a phenomenal guy. But a very, very humble man, and that's really what I took away. Very giving of his time, but a very humble individual. And we've talked about that. And as a result of that interview and our conversations and you being a guest here on the show, I can say that now I think officially we've become very good friends and have a mutual respect for one another. So, Byron, it's my honor and privilege, as always, to have you on the show as well.
Well, you know what? Thank you so much, Ted. A couple things real quick. One is Dad's victories were 51 on the PGA Tour.
Right.
But overall, if you add the 51 plus the 11 that he had on the Senior Tour, plus a couple of unsanctioned events, and then his international events, I think he's got over 70 events under his belt, which, as a player and a teacher both, as I know you are, just think about that for a second. Think about hoisting a trophy 70 times in your professional career, and that's really where it comes home to me, and it humbles me incredibly that he was able to do so much purely for a love of the game and a way to make a living, of course, and what a wonderful life golf has given him and has given us as a family. And for that, I'm sure I can speak on all of my siblings and Mom's behalf that we're all very, very grateful for that.
Yeah. And just a quick side note, your mom was going to join us tonight, but obviously she had something come up here in actually honor of your father, his memory, and just the great things that he's done.
She was asked to go to Morocco, and so she's over in Morocco this week at the King Hassan Trophy 2 tournament, which has been in existence for quite a while. It's a PGA European event, and Dad and Mom over the years, since the mid-'60s, have been very good, close friends with the royal family, and I think it's lovely for my sweet mom to go over and participate in those things. They have a lot of good memories over there.
Yeah, and that just again further attests to what a great not only a great man your father was, but obviously had great support with your mother and of course his wife over the years. And what was interesting, real quick, Byron, and then I want to get on and give you an opportunity to talk about his tournament a little bit, because it's coming up here in not too many weeks. Talk about that and a little bit about the foundation, and then we'll just have some good conversation. But I watched the we talked about this last night, the recent programming that they had on Jack, referring to Jack Nicklaus here. Mm-hmm. It was repeated again last night, but it followed the Masters. And, he talked about that, about his wife, Barbara Nicklaus, of course, how, really, if it wasn't for her, he probably wouldn't have done as well, because she was such a great support, not only of the fact that he was a golf professional, but she took care of a lot of the at-home issues that would come up, and allowed him to have that sort of free. And I imagine your mother was much the same. And back in those days, so. They weren't playing for multi-million-dollar purses, right? But that, and so I want to just take this moment to really give kudos to all of the women who, right, exactly. And I just think that a lot of the women during that time period, particularly, were very, very supportive, and I think your father mentioned that very gratefully on the program when he was here a few years ago, and talked about how supportive his wife was and your mother. So, but let's talk about his tournament coming up. When is it, and where is it, and then talk a little bit about what inspired that tournament and what some of the benefits coming out of it are.
Yeah, of course. Well, first, if you don't mind, let me touch on
Sure.
your last comment, because I I feel very strongly that a lot of these guys, if not all of them to a certain extent, that played golf in the early years especially, if they had families, they had to have a home that was taken care of for them, so they could really go out and play golf without having to worry too much about what was happening at home with the kids and et cetera. So I think it took an incredibly strong wife and mother to do that, and also someone that was willing to really look outside themselves. People like my mother, they took a back seat because they knew that Dad had a special skill that he was going to be able to do something wonderful with. And I think that takes a lot of kudos. And as I get older and as I've raised children myself and as I have my first granddaughter now, I have to say that my respect just goes up and up for the golfers that made this game great a long time ago, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And also the behind-the-scenes people that don't really necessarily get a lot of mention, like the wives and mothers, because they did one heck of a job allowing these great golfers like my dad to be able to go out and do what they do best. So thank you for mentioning that, and I think that is very important to realize.
Yeah, I think it's something that a lot of the listeners don't perhaps realize just how important. They see the players, whether it be your father, Jack, or Arnie, and some of the other ones that over the years that we were all in awe of their abilities. I think sometimes we forget that there was another person, encouraging them, being supportive, and taking care of the day-to-day business, if you will, in their lives, so that they could not have to worry about it on the golf course. I mean, could you imagine playing in this last week's Masters, if you had to worry about all kinds of things going on at home? So I gave them a great peace and comfort, I believe, in being able to know that they could go and focus on the tasks at hand and doing their best to win that tournament and not have to worry about the day-to-day dealings in their house. So again, kudos to all of the wives and the spouses that out there that help their players, and of course works both ways. There's lots of, now as the LPGA is blossoming and thriving over the years, it works both ways. There's husbands that maybe don't play professional golf and their wives are out on tour, so it cuts both ways. But something else I wanted to mention.
Absolutely, 100%.
Right. Something else I want to mention real quick, and you can talk a little bit about that as well as we continue on. But I want to get to the tournament and then about your dad's foundation. But you're newly a Ping staff member. You've taken on that venture here recently, and you've been bragging about those new sticks you've got, and maybe you might like to share a little bit with us here about that real quick.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you this, and it's really amazing because it really shows really two different things. It shows technology, but it also shows what a great club fitter can do to a better player when it comes to trying to get more yards, especially controlling the spin on a driver. And so I've got to say thanks to my friend Rich Mundy, who's the Ping rep here in San Diego, who I recently did this deal with, and he was able to use his magic to get me, believe it or not, 25 more yards with my driver. And as a 49-year-old who wants to play on the Champions Tour over the next couple of years, 25 yards is nothing to sneeze at, So
no.
It really comes down to spin, and I've always struggled, like I think a lot of good players can at times, with the spin rate that I get off of my driver, and it's so important when you're trying to squeak an extra 5-10 yards when you really need it, and so to be able to do that as well as being able to get the spin that I need with my wedges is paramount to my game, and I feel like I made the right choice. So thank you for bringing that up, by the way. I didn't know you were going to do that.
Well, hey, you know what? I'm going to give props where they're due. I mean, I know you've been very excited about this new relationship as a staff player for Ping, and very excited about this new relationship. And I thought since you were the last couple times that we've had some private conversations, you've been talking up a storm about these wonderful clubs. So I thought I'm going to give you an opportunity to talk about them tonight. But we're going to talk about. I'm going to give you some time to talk about the Champions Tour in a little bit. But I really want to give an opportunity, because that was really what we were going to talk about. Talk about your dad's tournament first, and then we'll get into some chatter a little bit later. Talk about the tournament. When's it coming up?
Yeah, of course.
And then and the folks that maybe are interested, if there's still some room to squeeze in there and play, if they're interested, or what they can do.
Well, the tournament is on May 1st, and it's always usually the first Monday in May here in San Diego at the beautiful San Diego Country Club, where if anybody knows my father or read any of my father's books or listened to his stories, will remember that the San Diego Country Club is the club that he used to caddy on as a kid, as a teenager when he was growing up. And so it holds a lot of memories for us as a family, and especially Dad. And so it was the natural location for the Billy's Kids Golf Tournament. And the Billy Casper Youth Foundation was the brainchild of my mom and dad to help raise funds for a traveling music, a children's or a youth traveling music group to go overseas. And from that, 20 plus years ago, it has blossomed into a foundation that helps children's charities, only children's charities, but they help children's charities around the country. And they have another event up in Utah they're affiliated with. It helps the hospital up there. They have the big event here in San Diego, which helps all sorts of groups, from the Boys and Girls Club to, I think they've even done some work or raised some money for one of the PGA Tour charities, Christina Smiles. And it really was all about helping to raise money for children's needs around the country. And what a worthy cause that is, especially if you're my mom and dad who have 1 million kids. So it brings it, it brings it home. And anybody that knows my dad knows of the struggles he had as a youth. And I think the struggles with just knowing what to do and how to make money and make a living and all of the normal things that we all go through. And I think that because of that, he really felt strongly with one of the charities they support, Junior Achievement, because Junior Achievement does a wonderful job of helping kids steer and gain some direction earlier in their lives when I think they really need it and are helped from it. So the Youth Foundation is still in existence, even though Dad passed away. My mother is still running it with the board of directors, and my sister Judy, who runs everything in the office and everything for my mom as well. And it really is a wonderful family event. I believe we have 6 spots or maybe 7 spots left in the tournament. Okay. So there is time to get a couple more people in. We're very fortunate to have most of the tournament sold out, and again, very grateful for the support, because it all goes to helping children, and that really is what the Youth Foundation is all about.
Just a couple points on that, and then I want to ask you one other question. But one of the things that, as I mentioned earlier, Byron, when I talked with your dad a few years ago. It was very evident. And let me just preface this first, because I don't think people really realize just how important the work with this foundation, as you were pointing out, was to your father. And again, unless you either really knew him or had the opportunity to speak with him, I mean, you could hear it literally in his voice. How much passion there was. It was extremely important. And it just, again, it gives a testament to that era particularly. I think there were a lot of people like your father and many of the other professionals of that era that found something that was passionate to them, that was important to them, and it was about giving back. It wasn't just about going out there and giving golf lessons or teaching others to play golf. It was about giving back to their communities, to their nation, if you will. Using the gifts that they were given, not only to earn a living, but to do something else. And it was very it was very apparent when talking to him that particular night on the program just how important the Billy's Kids Foundation was to him. And this was not just somebody. So. Yeah, it wasn't just somebody that went out and had a successful career and, shuffled a little bit of money over here to say, well, I'm going to help these people over here make myself look good. It was not about that at all. I can assure you of that. It was about doing something to help individuals, particularly, the children. And obviously, ultimately, it's going to benefit the adults of those children as well. But making sure that they had opportunities and things in their lives, as you mentioned, the Boys and Girls Clubs, and Junior Achievement and other organizations that funneled off of that, it was very apparent in that conversation that was paramount in having that foundation and doing the hard work that he did to make it successful. And that's
very much so.
Your father.
It's interesting. Dad was the sort of person, and I think you know this, and a lot of people around the world know this. His compatriots and colleagues out on the tour certainly knew this, but Dad really was on his own time frame and was such a people person, and especially later in his career. And he was, if he was asked to come and speak for an hour, you could be guaranteed that he'd come a little bit early and that he'd stay late, because he really cared about people. I saw that when we did a couple golf days ourselves together. And I don't think I'd really noticed it before. I knew that he loved people and he was great with people, but it wasn't until I came into my own as a golf professional and a professional golfer now, and really realized how much stress and how getting caught up in the game of golf really can be over-encompassing. And yet here's this guy who was out winning tournaments and playing in tournaments that always seemed to have enough time for his fellow man. And as his son and as just a human being, I really want to try to be more like that, because I think that's what people deserve. And so he was a wonderful role model for all of us in those respects, as well as on the golf course. And raising money for kids, a lot of people do various charities, and there's so much good work out there that's being done. All I can speak for is from my father's standpoint, and you have to realize, he's not flying around. He never had a jet. He wasn't living this incredibly lavish lifestyle, and yet he absolutely wanted to still put everything that he'd done in his career and help kids some way. And so raising money through the Youth Foundation and through the golf tournament was a great way for him to use his talents and his professional career to draw attention and, again, raise funds for children's charities. And it's something that I sincerely hope to be involved with for decades into the future. And I think that we've got the tools, and we certainly have the family members to keep it going.
Yeah, I would concur with that. But no, you raise a great point, and you're exactly right. It was something, and I've said this many times before. He was a very humble man, just from the limited time that I had exposed to him. And I talked to him actually for a little over an hour. I think it was a couple of weeks before he came on, and what was kind of funny, and I've said this before on the air, and I've said this to you personally, Byron. But what was really kind of interesting is, when the opportunity presented itself, I thought, well, I might get, a little bit of time, and I was very, honored to have whatever time he was willing to give. And with the exception of maybe a few minutes, your father basically gave me virtually the whole 2 hours of the program.
Yeah, that's not surprising.
And what was really nice about that was I could tell he enjoyed himself. And of course, we had a number of people from around the country that once I made it available that it was out there, actually called in that evening. I think we had close to a dozen callers from all around the United States. We actually had a young guy that was driving his son home from a football, I think it was a football practice or something along one of the interstates, and he had got wind of the program and was a big fan of your father's, and he called in and of course broadcast it throughout the car, and was very excited to be on and have a chance to talk to your father. And your father made a point of making each and every one of the people calling in feel respected and appreciated, that he valued them as another human being. And that was, that's just something that you don't see a lot of, unfortunately, in this day and age. And something, is better than any golf lesson I think you could ever get from your father. Is just that from a humanitarian standpoint, he was a great man, and I'm grateful for that honor and privilege.
I think that's true, and I'll end with this on this particular note, and that is that I think that the true measure of success in your career is what your colleagues think about you in a positive light. But I think that success in a life is really not only how the world perceives you, but how you are with the world. And, Dad was a wonderful man, and he gave a lot of his time. But at the same time, he never forgot where he came from. He always wanted to give back, and he was one heck of a dad, and as well as a golfer. And so thank you for your kind words regarding him. I'm sure he's listening up there somewhere. So I'm excited. And let me give the website to everybody. BillysKids.com is where they can get information on the Billy Casper Youth Foundation Golf Tournament. Again, it's BillysKids.com. And there's contact numbers, registration forms, and or they can email the office staff directly and get all the information that they'd like on the event.
Perfect. And as you said, there's approximately 6 or 7, at least at this moment, entries available. So for those of you listening, if you're going to be out in the San Diego area in around that time, May 1st, as Byron alluded to, reach out to the staff there and give you an opportunity not only to be part of a great event, but also to help further the cause that Billy started so many years ago with the charity and foundation Billy's Kids. So we'll give that website again one more time before we close off tonight. Let's talk about you for a second. I want to give you this opportunity because you and I have talked a little bit about this. You've obviously played, on a professional level before, but you've also taught for a number of years and continue to teach and coach and so forth. But you've had some aspirations that you've shared with me, and as you said, you're getting ready here to turn 5-0, not too distant future, and will be eligible from that standpoint to play on the PGA's Champions Tour. And I think you're heading to the Q School this fall, if I'm not mistaken. So tell us a little bit about that. What prompted you to decide to rekindle that passion, and what's your game plan?
Well, it's actually a great story, and because I've lived it, I can abridge it, so I won't have to take up a ton of time. But when I played over and was living over in Scotland, I was just getting my head around in my late 20s. Really understanding about my game, and I hadn't had much teaching experience at that point, but I'd had all the lessons that Dad had given me and all of my experience and so forth, and I think that I had a lot of skill and talent according to my father, but in reality I didn't have any substance, and then as life and coincidence would happen, I went through a separation and became a single parent. And it was just impossible for me to juggle raising children as well as trying to be a professional golfer. And so it was something I had to give up, and very quickly, and went into teaching almost by accident. The way the story goes, and it's interesting because these gentlemen are friends of mine to this day, and I'm still involved in their company. But I went in to a group in St. Andrews, Scotland, to look for sponsorship for a golf tournament that I was interested in. And after 6 hours, I realized I wasn't going to get the sponsorship, but was offered the head golf professional job for their group. And so I thought about it for about 24 hours and realized that, that was going to keep me at home every night so I could have dinner with the kids and pick them up from school when needed and all of those things that you do as a parent. And and it was so I jumped in with both feet. And then as I started that process, and this was with a group called the Heritage Golf of St. Andrews, I realized that I really loved teaching. And that's what prompted me to write a book on golf teaching, which was my second book, but it was my first book on golf and the teaching aspect of it and tips and tricks that you could use to lower your score. And over the course of the next decade, actually 15 years now, I have, again, just really, really enjoyed teaching. I've been fortunate enough to teach in St. Andrews, Scotland. I've taught in Oslo, Norway, in Munich, Germany, down in England. I've taught in Florida and Utah and in California now. And it's something I have a tremendous amount of passion for, both the technical side through my years with Golf Tech, as well as the feel side. Because, I was born and raised to be a field player. Dad is the epitome of that. But I was fortunate enough to be indoctrinated to the technical side. And so I was able to use both of those to help my students get better. And funny enough, as often happens, as you start teaching a lot and helping your students, you start really understanding your own swing and what you're capable of doing and how to fix yourself. And so I realized about 5, 6, 7 years ago that I had a real chance to try to have a second career, if you will, playing professional golf. And it's something that I talked a lot with my dad, and he was very supportive. Once he had me out on the golf course and could see that I could play the game, he was very supportive. My dad was, if anything, he was very straight, and if he didn't think that you had it, he was going to tell you every bit as much as if he did think you had it. And I was very blessed with that, and with his lessons both in life as well as on the course. And so, I did what I've needed to. I've taught well over 7,000 lessons because I've enjoyed it. I'm a co-owner of the Billy Casper Golf Academy in St. George, Utah. With some great gentlemen. And I'm really looking forward to putting down the management side of my career in the near future and doing nothing but just focus on getting ready to play some golf this fall. So as far as the Q school, as they say, absolutely, but have to get past stage 1 first. So watch this space with regards to it. But it's a great time, and at the ripe old age of 49, it's almost unbelievable to me that I'm this old, but I am, and so it really is time to start pulling the trigger and dedicate some hard work to getting ready to make these dreams come true.
And I'm going to be probably your second biggest fan, or maybe third, because I know your mother will be a big fan, and I know your children, of course. So you can rank me in third behind them. But I'm going to be very supportive and rooting for you as well. And I know I have no doubt that you will come out on top. But yeah, you certainly come from good stock. And, and you've mentioned this to me before, some of the great lessons that your father taught you, not only about life, but, out on the golf course as well, that, maybe at first glance maybe didn't make a lot of sense to you at that particular moment, but as you developed and grew as an individual, can look back and say, okay, now I get it, Dad, and I understand why you did that or why you did that. And it makes sense to me. So you can draw from not only your own experience, but from your father's experience as well when you go out there and tee it up with some of the former champions in golf. So I have no doubt that you'll do well.
Caddying as well. Well,
right.
And something as simple, really, if when you think about it, of caddying is at times can be anything but simple. Any professional caddy will tell you that, when it's wet outside, your job just gets doubled as far as how difficult it is keeping your player and the clubs and the grips and everything else dry. Right. But, I had the experience of doing that for almost 4 years of my life for Dad and for a few other players. And I think that caddying is a wonderful way to not just be inside the ropes, but also to really understand the game, or what I like to call the playability of the game. Because you have nothing but time to notice everything and really understand how important it is to know that the pin is, seven from the left and 10 from the front. Little things like that are paramount when you're trying to play your best. And so I think you're right, and I'm grateful for the experiences I've had. And I have to include caddying. Long before I turned professional, that was really the beginning of my understanding of this great game we call golf.
Yeah, and that raises a great point too, Byron, is the fact that a lot of people don't really appreciate when you see a lot of these great players like Sergio and Phil and Tiger and your father and Jack and Arnie before them. They don't realize the important role that a caddy plays. It's not just carrying the bag around 18 holes. There's a lot of dialogue that goes on in most cases, and it's not just wiping down grips. It's hard work, and it's not easy, and you've got to know when to speak and when to keep your mouth shut when you're walking around, especially when you're playing in a tournament. Practice rounds you can get away with a little bit more, but when you're in the heat of a tournament, especially if your player is in contention or close to contention, a lot of pressure is on that player. You have to know when to say what. You first need to know what to say and when to say it, and when not to say anything at all, because it can make or break. It can certainly contribute to making and breaking a round for that particular player, and it's even doubly so when you're caddying for for your father. In your case, because you have to go home with him later, so it's not like you're going to a separate house. You know what I mean?
Amen. Amen to that.
It could make for a very difficult evening, I'm sure. But Byron, I have no doubt that you will shine on the Champions Tour, and I'm very excited for you. And 49's not so old. I'm 53 now, so I got a few years on you. So believe me, you've got a couple of years.
Hey, look, 49 isn't old at all. In fact, now that I'm here, I think 49 is very young. So
that's right. So give it a couple more years. You haven't begun to feel aches and pains yet. I'm only teasing, but it's great, and I'm excited the fact that you're going to be doing that. Let me just ask you something. I want to take a few moments of our time here while we have some left to maybe share some thoughts for the listeners out there that maybe are struggling with their game. It's a new season for many people out there, especially up in some of the colder climates that don't have the benefit of where you are in California and where I am here in Florida, to have some great golf all year round. Some of them maybe played or practiced in an indoor facility or were able to travel to warmer fronts and able to play some golf throughout the winter months. But share some tips, if you can, for golfers. What do you like to see the golfers do here at the beginning of the season to get ready for some great golf? And what would you recommend, especially with time restraints now? Everybody's got things happening in their lives. They can't spend as much time in the practice end of it as they once did. What would you do, or what would you recommend to a player if you were working with them?
Well, I think I could split it into two different categories.
Sure.
Because what I would suggest for a higher handicap amateur player is far different than what I would suggest for a low handicap player or a professional. And so starting with the higher handicap player, I would say that really the importance of jumping back into the swing of things coming out of a winter season is obviously a little bit of flexibility is going to help you. And so stretching, things like that are very important. But just getting some practice swings and pay attention to where your club is hitting the ground, and just go to the backyard or grab a wedge and take some half swings in the living room. But, just really be aware of what your hands are doing, where that club is coming into contact with the ground. And I can promise you that if you just do that 10, 20 times a night for a week before the snow clears and you head out on the golf course, you're going to jumpstart your preparedness by a long shot.
Right.
For a much better player, I would say hands down, coming out of a cold season or not having played golf for a few months, work on making sure that your rotation is there. Really force yourself to over-rotate when you're taking practice swings as far as swinging out towards the target and getting those hips moving through. Because that's really what I think better players struggle with when they're a little tight and they're not loosened up and they haven't really played much golf, is they have a tendency to get a little armsy and not really get the entire core and their body moving through the shot. I know at times I've suffered with that. And so for a better player, it's even more important that they get their flexibility down so they really have that recall of muscle memory from the previous year of what it's like to swing down and through, but really also get those hips and your core moving through the ball as well.
Yeah, and well said. I think what it is, and we talked a little bit about this earlier on Coach's Corner earlier this evening on the show, and a lot of the especially the high handicap golfers out there, they're getting ready for a new season. They go to the golf course. They wonder why they're not playing any better. But when you take a look at their preparedness before a round, it's almost non-existent. They're not doing anything at all. If they're lucky, they might hit a ball or two or make a couple of putts on the practice green, and then they think that that's going to, cure a lot of the issues out there. And they're not really doing anything the rest of the week. They're not really practicing much. So they just don't seem to comprehend the fact that they're not going to break 100 for that very reason, because they're not doing anything to prepare, stretching otherwise. And you just emphasized here just a moment ago at how important that is, really for both, but particularly for the high handicap players. You've got to do something if you expect to get results. And I think this is another reason why a lot of those folks have dropped out over the years, is because they've become frustrated, but they're not being realistic to their to their true self as to why they're not improving. It's not a matter of not being able to hit a golf ball or distance or anything like that, which is common with a lot of amateurs out there, is they think, well, if I can just get that driver and get an extra 25, 30 yards out there, I'll be fine. The truth of the matter is their practice time has dwindled down so much that they're not working on the fundamentals. Jack Nicklaus talked about in Golf My Way, his video that he had years ago. He talked about one of the main key things that he does every single year at the beginning of the season, when the PGA particularly had a shorter season at that time, is he got out and he worked on the fundamentals. He didn't sit there and make all kinds of swing changes. He didn't need to. He worked on his fundamentals, and he did that before he started playing competitively, because he wanted to make sure that the rust had come off and the cobwebs have come out, because he wasn't playing for a little while as much as competitively. And I think that's what a lot of the amateurs should take note in. You don't have to go out there and play 100 rounds, but get out there and practice whenever you can, even if it's 5 minutes at home, as you said, right?
Well, yeah, I think it's important, and I love that you mentioned Nicklaus, because as I've been watching his the little mini series on him. Yeah. A couple things really jumped out at me. One of the things that I learned from Jack was his trick of focusing 3 feet in front of the ball and picking out an intermediary target. Interestingly enough, that's something that I've done for the last maybe 8 to 10 years, and it does make a difference when you're focusing on where you want to strike that ball through, rather than necessarily focusing on the green all the time. And I think that he was amazing in so many ways. But he says himself, and he says it on his mini series in one of the interviews, that he really truly believes that he out-practiced his other players. He practiced so much that he was prepared. And you know, I find that so interesting because my father, before he passed away, him and I had this discussion and about being prepared, and it wasn't necessarily about golf. It was just about life in general. And you know, he made the comment to me that he said, you know, son, always be prepared. You don't know what's around the corner. And and I, you know, I can liken that to my career and the opportunities with work and with other things. But I just think that's great advice in general. You know, I think it's actually the Boy Scout motto too, isn't it? But you know, just be prepared because you don't know what's coming around the corner. And so I love when Jack says that himself, that he just out prepared the other players when he was in his heyday. And I think it obviously showed, didn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and you know, and just with that statement alone, I'm sure that there's a few 20-year-olds and teens out there that probably just rolled their eyes hearing that statement, but it's true because, you know, at that age, you don't really, you know, especially even in this day and age, you don't realize the importance of preparedness. And you're right. You know, you have to practice with a purpose. And I think a lot of people get out there and they're just beating balls and, you know, raking and beating balls, or they make a few putts, but they don't really have a purpose or an agenda. And one of the things, and I'm sure your father was the same way, that Jack did, and he talked about this in his videos and in many of his interviews, is, you know, he just didn't go out there and hit balls. He had a purpose, and he had a little game plan, if you will. When he had his practice sessions, there was specific things that he wanted to do, and you know, that's what kept him motivated. And you know, he played, you know, the course in his mind. You know, he had sort of his part of his pre-shot routine, if you will, or pre-game routine is a better way to put it, was playing that course. You know, before he even got to the Masters, I mean, he was one of the ones that got there the week before and played, and he knew exactly what to expect hole for hole. And with the exception of, you know, a gust of wind or something like that may come up, and he knew how to handle and anticipate some of those changes. And that's why he was truly a master at the game, above and beyond so many of the other players out there. And that was why, even to this day, regardless of records and all this other stuff that they talk about, why he's considered to be one of the greatest golfers that ever played this game, is because of his inner mental strength. Because if you look at his you know, his ball striking ability and there's probably 100 players that could strike the ball better than he could, but they didn't have the internal dialogue, if you will, and the internal mental strategy and foresight that he was able to put together. And that's why he was able to beat so many of his competitors out there, was he basically thought his way around the golf course better than most of the players he ever played against.
Well, 100%. You know, being prepared is important. Knowing the course, visualization. A lot of the things that we hear nowadays, these great players 30 years ago were you know, using in their careers. It's just nobody was talking about it in the same level. We didn't have the same level of information that was freely available as we do now. But a lot of these guys were using variations of focus techniques and other things, you know, again, 30, 40 years ago. And, you know, I've heard it said by a few of Jack's colleagues that when he was ready to hit a shot there and got over the ball, there was almost a bubble of focused energy around him. And I think I've never heard it explained to me like that until recently. And I think that's probably very accurate with anybody that rises up to that level in sport. I think that being able to focus to that level is a necessity when you're playing at that level of any sport, but especially in golf, where it really is just you and that club in your hand. And so, you know, Jack's a wonderful, wonderful man. Has done so much for the sport. Was a good friend of my father's, and my mother's, both. And you know, I have nothing but respect for that family. Kind of what I consider the first family in golf, because of what he really has done, both on and off the golf course.
Yeah,
his major
very
record
much like
is just amazing in itself. So.
Right. And it's very much like your father in the sense that, you know, he gave back. He had a lot of, you know, outside interests as far as, you know, helping, you know, those that were in need, you know, through various charities and things like that. Also, again, and much like your father and Arnold and many of that generation believed in giving back to something that gave a lot to them. So, you know, it's very. I got to say one little quick thing, and then I want to give you an opportunity to wrap up talking about the tournament and things again. But one of the things that was interesting about the mini series that Jack talked about, and I want, for those of you listening out there, I want you to put this in perspective. When much of this video and that we saw, if you watched the mini series, and if you didn't, then, you know, go online and I'm sure there's a link that you can get to see it. But one of the things that really caught my attention, and I'm sure you will know what I'm talking about, Byron, but they used to have, and I don't know, I don't think it was at the Masters. I'm not sure if it was at the PGA Championship, but they used to have a long drive component to it. They don't have it anymore. And they were talking about Jack. Now, put things in perspective. At that time, in that day and age, they were using persimmon woods. They were not using these high-tech metal woods that they're using today in composite shafts and things like that. Yes.
Tell the kids out there what persimmon. Tell the youth out there what persimmon means, just in case any of them are listening.
It's made of wood. In other words.
Yes, exactly. Wood. I want you to, because I know the story you're going to tell. I just want you to put into perspective that it's a wood driver that he's doing this with.
And it's basically carved, you know, out of wood. And obviously they did have some inserts, but it's not like today's with all the titanium and this, that, and the other. So it was a wooden club, and Jack Nicklaus hit a drive in this competition when they were still having it. And again, I don't recall the tournament that they had it at that time. 341 yards, and they actually had the last year. I think they had it. They talked about another player who had hit a little more recent, and his drive was only 341. He won, of course, the competition. Jack did in his day, and this other gentleman, I think the last year they had it, and he hit it 6 yards shorter than Jack did. So, and this was going back, I think it was in the 70s, if I'm not mistaken. So this was quite a ways back. This is not just, you know, last year or a couple of years ago. This was, you know, 30, 40 years ago. So, you know, when you hear these players on the PGA Tour with all of the technology and equipment, you know, hitting it, you know, 320, 325, and so on and so forth, think about, here's a guy, Jack Nicklaus, 30, 40 years ago that hit it further, or at least as far in many cases as what the guys are doing today on the PGA Tour. That's a pretty big feat in itself. And there was actually one case they gave at a tournament, I forget now where this was, obviously got some roll with it. He hit it 350 yards with that same driver they talked about. So just to put it in perspective, guys.
That's amazing.
You know what that's just incredible. That's mind-boggling. And you know,
I think what that says. Well, I think what that says. I mean, in a very real sense, I personally believe and agree with the Golf Digest gentleman that was on the series. I can't remember his name, but he said the same thing. But I agree. I think that knowing those stats, I think that given technology and equipment nowadays, Jack still would be the longest in golf by a long shot. And I think that stat back in the 60s of him hitting a 341-yard drive the day before, you know, he heads off into the tournament with that ball and a wooden head is shockingly amazing. I'll just say that.
Yeah, and then just to add, just to correct what I had said. In addition to that, you're right. The golf ball, the technology in golf balls wasn't anywhere near what it is today. So you had that, and most of the golf balls in those days were a balata, which was a wound golf ball with basically a woundly tight, you know, rubber band. Basically, is what it was, and very soft cover. So it's not like again with the technology that we're using today. It's just amazing. I just wanted to throw that in there because it was something that, I don't think, when I hear people saying, well, I want to get more distance and I want to get this, I want to get this club or I want to get that because I want to hit it 25 yards further. Contact with the ball in the correct fashion at first. Then when you can do that on a consistent basis, then if you want to treat yourself down the road and get that favorite driver or that favorite set of golf clubs, then it's worth the investment. But for somebody to go out and spend, $1,000 or $2,000 or whatever the case may be in the latest and greatest equipment, and you can't make good contact with the golf ball on a regular, consistent basis, you're just wasting your money. That money could be better spent connecting with a great teacher and coach like Byron and or myself and many of the other thousands of golf professionals out there. Money well better spent than going out and spending $300-400 on a brand new driver that you don't even know how to hit. So that's just my 2 cents on technology.
And take advantage of the video. Take advantage of video technology. Because that's something you can relive. And if you're smart nowadays, you don't have to ever take the same lesson twice.
Exactly. Well said. Byron, we only got a few minutes left, so I want to wrap this up, giving one more opportunity to let the folks know about the tournament. When's it being held and where they can go and get information about that tournament?
Yeah, of course. First, the website is billyskids.com. And we've got, actually, I just read my notes, and we've actually got 10 spots open for golfers left. We also have a wonderful dinner and entertainment in the evening, and people that can't attend the golf tournament can come to the dinner and buy a spot for the dinner, which begins at 6 p.m. This year, we've got some really amazing things going on at the event, including some of my friends that are going to be coming by and playing in the event, including Randy Jones, the baseball player from the Padres. And we've also got some great auction highlights that I want to mention, including golf for 4 at Pinehurst, as well as the Greenbrier, Ryder Cup 2018 tickets in Paris. 14-day Crystal cruises in Australia, weeks in Maui, and golf at Kaanapali, a Scottish trip that I personally put together, and a lot of other wonderful things that, as you can imagine, being heavily involved in the golf world helps us to put some really wonderful, unique golf trips together for people. And so, again, the website is billyskids.com. They can find out all of the information about the tournament and about the organization on that website. And we would sincerely love to have any of the listeners that happen to be in the area come on down.
Sounds good. And that tournament date again is May 1st, which is a Monday.
May 1st.
Monday. Yeah. So keep that in your calendar and go to the billyskids.com website to get more information on that as well. Byron, my friend, it's been an enjoyable hour. As always, I appreciate it. You giving of your time to come on the show, and I know that the listeners enjoy it as well. And thanks for doing all the great work. And you and I are gonna be doing some more things throughout the year, of course, as your schedule permits. I know that you're always, much like your father, giving of his time. So I look forward to having you come back again. But I know you and I will be chatting many more times, having some more in-depth conversations offline as we did tonight.
Oh, well,
so I appreciate
100%.
that. Yeah.
and yeah, you and I have a wonderful habit of being able to talk. But I want to say one thing, and I'll as I go, and that is that this last week we had the wonderful opportunity to watch Sergio and Justin Rose go head to head on that final day. And regardless of who you support or love in the golf world, I can't think of a recent or better example of really how wonderful the game of golf is when it comes to camaraderie and the level and the ability to be able to go out and play against one of your best friends and beat him and still give each other hugs and hug the family afterwards. Very impressed with the way Justin Rose handled it, and very impressed with Sergio finally pulling his major. I love this sport, and I hope that everybody listening gets out to the driving range very soon and works on their game and gets ready for the season coming.
Couldn't have said it better myself, my friend. My very special guest tonight, Byron Casper, and good friend. Thank you as always for joining me, and we'll talk soon. Have a great evening, and happy Easter.
Thank you. You as well.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right. Good night, Byron. All right. Bye-bye. All right. That was my very special guest, Byron Casper, son of legendary Billy Casper. If you go to billyskids.com, you can learn more about the tournament coming up in May 1st at the San Diego Country Club, and obviously benefiting Billy's Kids Foundation. I also want to give a special thank you and shout out to the guys on the Coach's Corner panel earlier the first half, John Hughes, Peter Egazarian, and Paul Kaster. Thanks, guys, again for doing a great job. And thank you to all of the listeners for faithfully tuning in. We're about ready to go offline here in just a moment, so I want to take just a quick moment to thank all the listeners for faithfully tuning into to Golf Talk Live each and every week, and I mean it sincerely that I appreciate all your support and all of the supporters and sponsors, Mr. Jonathan Laird from South Coast Golf Guide, Meredith Kirk from Meredith Kirk Golf, and Nikki and Tiffany Litherland. Thanks for all of your support, Mr. Bernie Pinder from Ontic Golf, Sean Kelly, owner of LinkedGolfers.com, and Mr. Peter Doyle from Doyle Golf Solutions over in Ireland. Thanks, guys, for all of your continued support, and thank you again for tuning in to Golf Talk Live. Very much appreciated. And with that in note, I will be back next week with another great Coach's Corner, special Coach's Corner actually, and with another great guest. So I hope you'll tune in. So remember to join me next Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. Central. And happy Easter, everybody. God bless. And I will see you next week right here on Golf Talk Live. Thanks, everybody.